Today is the 10th day of February 2015. I'm joined by the great councilman of the 11th District, Joe, Mike Bonin, and I'm also joined by the 15th District, the great councilman.
Last time.
I know. Joe Boscaino.
Item number
PLA, give us a call.
Item number 1, City Attorney report and ordinance relative to authorizing Department of Airports to use the competitive seal proposal selection process and the construction manager at risk alternative project delivery method and establishing criteria relating to such contracts for airfield capital improvement projects at LAX.
Thank you. If you identify yourself and give us a brief report. Thank you.
Good morning, Brian Osler, Deputy City Attorney. This item for you the first time that was approved by the board, which is to allow the airports to use the competitive seal proposal process for certain airfield work, and also allow us to use a CM at risk, construction manager at risk methodology. These are a lot of airport.
Our success.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Let's hear for the department.
Yes. Again, both of these, the competitive seal price proposal is really a selection process by which we can use qualifications as part of the process for bidding on a job. The construction manager at risk is actually a different methodology than what is normally called a design bid build job. The ordinance would essentially allow us to use either the alternative construction methodology or the competitive seal price proposal to procure construction contracts for airfield projects. We are under a very tight deadline to meet the FAA's mandate for runway safety areas for the next actually 4 years. We will be either closing runways or shortening runways because of all the construction going on, and the time frame is so critical that it's actually imperative that we get the most qualified contractors to do this work. This ordinance will allow that to happen.
Very good.
Just a couple questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Which specific projects is this going to be for, Roger?
Yes, Councilman Bonin, this would be for the rehabilitation of the South Airfield runway 25L. It will be for the runway safety areas on runway 24L and 24 right. It will also be for some remain overnight parking areas on the west and secured access posts and vehicle checkpoints that will support the airfield projects.
Doesn't move any of the north runways even an inch further north, right?
Not an inch, no. There's no north or south movement of any runways.
Good to hear. Under this type of construction management, who's responsible for change orders and when, and how is that different from another system?
The construction manager at risk method, the owner being in this case LAWA, it still has legal responsibility for change orders due to either errors in the construction documents or unforeseen conditions. So we would still maintain responsibility. If we go CMAR, the advantage of going with a construction manager at risk is you can bring the construction manager on board early enough to help work with the designer to do constructability reviews and other things. So it minimizes the risks of change orders, but it doesn't eliminate.
We use this on Tibbet, right?
We use it on Bradley West.
Thank you.
Terminal.
Strike that from the record.
Strike from the record.
And no, I did not say that, Mr. Levant.
And did we learn anything from that is changing how we're doing it this time?
Absolutely. With the Tom Bradley, the new Bradley West that we call it, because of the timing on Bradley West, we were not able to bring the contractor on board early enough to do what I would consider to be an adequate job of constructability review working with the designer. This would allow us to do that.
Great. And great job, by the way, on the Tom Bradley International Terminal.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay, you're very good, very good. We're going to move to approve unanimous. One request, if you could, Mr. Clerk, if you could hand this to the airport representative. This is a sketch of LAX, and I want to get for all my colleagues here the acreage, and then I also want like 10 other airports in the world, and like the overview picture of it, because some airfields are clearly away from the public. I just want to see this connection the top 10 airports, Google it and let us know.
Be
Thank
happy
you.
to do that.
Thank you so much. Next
Thank
item.
Item number 2, Categorical Exemption and Board of Airport Commissioners Report relative to the proposed First Amendment of the ground lease with Reliant LAX Clinic, LLC.
Mark Adams, Los Angeles World Airports. This is, Reliant has provided medical services at LAX for a number of years, since the mid-'80s, and their predecessors under this agreement. And what this agreement will do is extend the term of their lease for 5 years so that they will be able to continue providing those services in the existing facilities they have, both on Sepulveda Boulevard and in the Tom Bradley Terminal.
Mr. Bonin?
I'm okay.
Good. And you have the future, you have plans for that land that may be different?
This land may get caught up in our ground transportation renovations, which is why we're giving them a 5-year lease.
And do you have an exit
With the
clause? Like,
180
what if you need them in 4 years?
Beg pardon?
Do you have an exit clause? If, let's say, in
There's
4
an exit clause
Got it.
that goes in 2017 with 180 days notice.
Super. Thank you very much. And CAO's all behind.
Yes, CEO recommends approval of
Thanks
this
so much.
proposal.
So nice to see you.
Thank you.
Unanimous. Next vote.
Item number 3, Categorical Exemption and Board of Airport Commissioners Report relative to the proposed First Amendment to the concession agreement with DFS Group LP for duty-free merchandise at LAX.
Again, Mark Adams, Los Angeles World Airports. When we approved the concession agreement for duty-free DFS to do the duty-free concessions in Tom Bradley Terminal, there were delays for them moving in, and they had to incur a little additional construction expense, about $1 million worth. So what we're doing, because of the delay and because of the additional construction expense, we are extending their agreement by 1 year so that they can recoup the money that they lost out at the front end of the contract.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bonin. Bill Kreitz of the CAO's office. If I might add just briefly, Mr. Bonin, as I was writing this report, I want you to know I kept hearing no Tibbet, no Tibbet, no Tibbet running through my mind, so you're having an effect. I will say that we have reviewed this and we recommend approval.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Recommend approval. Next item.
Item number 4, Administrative Exemption and Board of Harbor Commissioners Report relative to proposed First Amendment to the agreement with Wet Enterprises Incorporated to provide maintenance services for the Harbor Boulevard water features.
Very good. CAO, you want to...
Yeah, Alvin Newman, CAO's office. The intent of this is First Amendment to add 1 year and an additional 1 year renewal options for maintenance services for the Harbor Boulevard water features and equipment. This contract would be for a total of 8 years and an amount of $3.1 million.
Thank you. Identify yourself.
Good morning, Chairperson. The Joe Maldonado, Port of Los Angeles, Director of Construction and Maintenance.
It's a good thing, Joe?
Fantastic.
Okay.
Good morning. Tony Joello, Director of Development at Port of LA.
Thank you very much. Let's have some questions. Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So explain the need to go with Wet Enterprises, and why can't we, as a port, maintain this with using our own staff?
Yes, Councilperson. The fountain was built approximately 8 years ago, and the installer, Wetcare, is a sole proprietorship. They manufacture the equipment, the software. They're the only ones that have the technical expertise to maintain and service this water feature. They also maintain the one at the Bellagio in Las Vegas, so their expertise is well-rounded. 3 years ago, we did an RFP. 3 companies responded. One withdrew. The other one said they could only maintain the water quality. So overall, Wetcare provided the best service available at that time.
Got it. And then my understanding, go ahead, Joe.
We don't have the in-house expertise to maintain this proprietary hardware and software.
Very good. Appreciate that. So we're looking at an 8-year contract with Wet Enterprises, and my understanding it's about $400,000 a year to maintain it for the next 8 years.
That's correct. We awarded a 3-year contract. This one is calling for an additional 5 years. It's approximately $400,000 per year. We negotiated wet care, and we think we got an overall fair deal. They've done extremely well maintaining the fountain, taking ownership, and it's a partnership. We work with them to make sure the feature operates, and it's been in operation probably 98% of the time.
Okay.
And the community enjoys it.
Got it. Well, it's an incredible feature, and that's one of the first things you see when you arrive at the Port of Los Angeles at the cruise terminal.
Mhm.
In light of what we're trying to accomplish to bring tourism dollars, economic development along the waterline, this is kind of our north end anchor feature. I mean, I'd like to see more retail development, dining, entertainment, as we've been talking about and working together with the port. So I appreciate the insight, and knowing that the port does not have the skills and the knowledge to maintain this incredible feature. I ask that we approve this, Mr. Chair, and move this.
Thank you. Mr. Bonin?
No questions. Not quite as cool as the multicolored pylons at LAX, but I support this.
Well, you know, the key is, too, those pylons, you may send a thank you note to every weather station in town.
Right.
Because, and whoever has the ICAM up there, because it is now
That's true.
I represent the Hollywood sign, but the LAX sign is seen more by that.
Yeah.
And we were able to...
and was a hell of a lot more expensive than the fountain.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Next item.
Thank you.
Item number 5, Administrative Exemption and Board of Harbor Commissioners Report relative to the proposed 11th Amendment to the permit with Houston Terminals Incorporated, incorporating the mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the container terminal improvement projects at berths 212 to 224.
Good morning. Mike DiBernardo with the Port of Los Angeles. I'm here with Samita Thapa, who's our property manager for that area. I'd like to have her explain that project for you.
Thank you.
Good morning. We're requesting approval to the 11th Amendment for the YTI terminal. The 11th Amendment to the YTI permit is required to incorporate the mitigation measures that resulted from the approval of the EIR process that was certified by the Board of Harbor Commissioners in November 2014, and that would result in the redevelopment of the YTI terminal. Recently, the Harbor Department has completed the channel deepening project, and so as a result of the project, we are able to accommodate the larger vessels. However, the YTI terminal in its present condition is unable to take advantage of that. They're unable to accommodate the larger vessels. Therefore, this project was contemplated. Approval of this amendment would result in incorporating the mitigation measures into the permit and commence the redevelopment project. Therefore, we're requesting your approval.
All right, questions for Mr.
Thank you.
Busqueno?
Thank you for the report. Thanks, Mr. DiBernardo, for your efforts on this. This is a contract extension that I feel that it's needed in order to keep our ports more competitive, in order to move our economy forward, and at the same time create jobs, not only locally, regionally, but nationally. At the time that this EIR was before the Commission and the port, there were a number of individuals from the environmental justice community that came out and expressed concerns, and many of those concerns were around the amount of the time or lack thereof given for the environmental community to review the report. I believe the port has done a great job to hold this to the point where the port did reach out to the environmental justice community and listen to their comments and their concerns and answered the questions. It was evident that the Port of Los Angeles was able to address those concerns, to the fact where no one has appealed the EIR. Can you tell me how these improvements specifically to the terminal, the YTI terminal, will increase business and help make the port more competitive?
Yes, and good point about the environmental community, and our Executive Director, Gene Stroka, did a great job with the outreach along with Chris Cannon did an outreach with the environmental groups and continues to have dialogue with them. So great work on that part. In regards to the YTI project, this allows for, as Samita mentioned, we did a channel deepening project down to 53 feet. The wharves were not able to accommodate that 53 feet of water depth. So by doing this project, we're allowed to upgrade our wharves, deepen the channel to 53 feet, allows the larger ships to come in, the 14,000 TEU ships to come into that terminal. And in addition, it's adding additional rail, on-dock rail, so it gives them the ability to move the cargo out of the port by rail versus truck. So this is a very good project in that regard in order to bring in the larger ships, move more cargo by rail, and to handle more volume at that terminal.
Ultimately, we would encourage more on-dock rail.
That is correct.
Cleaner and faster way to get goods in and out of our ports.
That is correct.
And I just want to make an observation. I know the port, again, we talk about moving goods and their expertise in the movement of cargo in and out of our port. But yet we are now seeing a turn in the commitment from the port to move forward on waterfront redevelopment as it relates to retail, dining, entertainment. I know this is a $58 million capital improvement project for YTI that's going to be done over the course of the next 30 months. And just note that the verbal commitment from the port on the waterfront development is a $50 million commitment over the course of the next 5 years. So just note that. I know we're making significant progress on the waterfront side, on the retail, dining, entertainment. But I just hope that the port continues to prioritize the importance of not only moving cargo but also moving people along our water line as it relates to retail, dining, entertainment. So good work to Mr. Soroka again for being accessible to the environmental community. I also wear the AQMD hat, and I know AQMD had some issues and concerns, and those have been addressed by Mr. Soroka and his executive team. So I appreciate this effort moving forward, and I know YTI has been seeking this extension here for quite some time, and I know they can now ease and go to work and make our port more competitive. So I ask that we approve this, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Bonner, any questions?
No.
No questions? I'm going to support it. I think we're all going to support it. Just a question I want to ask the CAO. There's a thing called 1% for the arts, and there's a thing called Quimby funds and Quimby fees. Does there need to be anything in the future, not to slow this down at all, but is there anything in the future that would allow the port, if it was 0.001 or whatever it is, come up with a number that goes to do the things that you've been trying to do in such a hard way before you, the great Janice Hahn, that really is transforming it, and bring the city, San Pedro, Los Angeles, back to the people. Is there anything in that, a toolbox, is that what they call it? Mm-hmm. In the toolbox.
Right. Yeah, Alvin Newman, CAO's office. It would be my understanding that it would be a policy decision and a decision that would be best made between the council and the Board of Harbor Commissioners. Okay,
but do they have to qualify for 1% for the art at all?
It's my understanding that they do not, and I can clarify it. No, it's my understanding they do not.
Okay, and you want to. Okay.
Oftentimes, Mr. Labange takes litigation.
I got it, but I mean, it's a law that affects everybody else who's developing. I want to.
No, it's a great point.
Hopefully I can clarify. The Port and Cultural Affairs actually has a separate MOU on the 1% for the art.
Okay.
And so we are a little bit different than a private developer, but we do 1% for the art on the building square footages when we build actual buildings, not on site developments like this.
Right.
We do have, though, a policy that we've adopted for the waterfront, that 1% of our waterfront developments we do contribute to the public art.
Got it. Okay, but also the Quimby on the parks.
Quimby, I'm not sure of, but we can look into that.
It's just something to look about in the future because I think there's nothing like the Port of Los Angeles. There's nothing like San Pedro. I live in Silver Lake, but it's my second favorite neighborhood. And what you're trying to do is bring people back to the water. And when I go down there, I see thousands of people. Hundreds of thousands sometimes when you have special events like the Big Duck and Little Duck, and that's a good thing. So put it back in your mind and that you discuss, see what can be done or what's done at other ports. I know I've been around the world a little, and I've seen some things done miraculously that combine it. So, but let's vote for approval of this and forthwith.
And if I can, Mr. Chair, I acknowledge Chris Cannon, who's here, who leads the Harbor Department's environmental department. And thank you, Chris, for working on this YTI contract extension. Mr. DiBernardo?
I'd like to point out one more thing. I mean, the success of our container terminals also helped us drive to some of the public access programs that we're doing. So definitely we want to see the success of our customers out there to help us grow in revenue so that we can focus our efforts on some of the public access projects.
Equally important.
So-
You know, it should be added, too. One of the things that the Harbor Department did do as part of this report, one of the amendments includes a new permit section on environmental compliance.
No, it's a great addition. Appreciate that.
All right, we're off to the races, as they say. So we vote approval on all these matter. Thank you. I do have one public comment card. I especially want to make sure the airport people stay for this. Vito, I want to say it correctly, Vito.
And, council member?
Yes.
The Harbor Department would like to reconsider for a technical correction.
Hold on, Vito. All right, let's reconsider that on the technical correction.
Mr. Chair, good morning. In our excitement, I forgot to request, if I can request a technical amendment, that the recommendation number 2 from the Harbor Department read, approve the first amendment to Agreement 12-3045. Thank you.
All right, so approved.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
And, council member, I would also like to let you know that both of these 2 port items will be in council today.
Super. Thank you. Vito, please. Trigala?
It's Trelia.
Trelia. Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Vito Trelia, and I'm working with the LA Raise the Wage Coalition, which is the coalition of folks trying to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour here in the city of Los Angeles. Specifically, I'm working in the 11th and 15th district, so it's appropriate to be here, but also the TCT oversees, of course, essential economic engines such as the ports and the airport. And all that we ask is that as these economic engines propel our city forward, that we remember the workers who make those engines run so smoothly and not leave them behind. We also have something that's pretty exciting. I'm sure you have heard of the Multiplier Effect, which is when you inject additional income into people's pockets, that translates into spending, which translates into more income up to a certain point at least. And it's an exciting idea. So as we deliberate the future of these places in Los Angeles that propel us forward, we want to remember those workers that keep them running smoothly. And specifically, we can do that by giving them a living wage. As you probably also know, the majority of Angelenos spend more than 50% of their income on rent, which doesn't leave a lot of room for consumer purchases. So finally, along with an increased income, we'd like to make sure that we have a provision to enforce that minimum wage. As the former officer can probably attest, laws work better when you have someone there to enforce those laws. And finally, we'd like to have an increase in sick days for folks. Take the state minimum of 3 and get that up to 5. It's totally uncontroversial and widely accepted that sick days actually save employers money in the long run, not to mention make us all more comfortable when we go to the salad bar, right? So I'd like to thank you and hope that you'll support our platform.
Thanks, Vito. No other public comments. Everybody have a good, safe day. This meeting's adjourned. Bye-bye.